I want you to hear the sound. The sound of the door closing behind me that night. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't hesitant. It was a slam. Sharp and final, like the crack of a gavel in an empty courtroom. A sound that tells you something is over, forever, even before your heart can beat its next painful thud. I stood there on the porch, our porch, frozen, staring at the wood grain as if it might dissolve, as if he might wrench it open, his face shattered by regret, and pull me back into the warmth of the life we'd built. But the door stayed shut. A solid, silent verdict. It never opened again. I was holding a suitcase. A small one. He had packed it. That fact echoed in my hollowed-out chest. My husband, David, had gone into our bedroom, our sanctuary, and thrown my things into this bag. My hands shook so badly the handle rattled a frantic, silent rhythm. Inside that house was everything. The couch we'd chosen together, the kitchen where I'd learned to cook for him, the garden where we'd planted dreams that never quite bloomed. 12 years. A life built carefully, patiently, with love as the blueprint. And in the space of 10 minutes, I was erased. He didn't look at me when he said it. His eyes, usually so warm, were fixed on a spot over my shoulder, like I'd already vanished. His voice was cold. Tired.
Certain. Get out, he said.
I don't want to see you here again. I waited for a pause. A crack in his voice. A single, desperate question in his eyes. But there was nothing. Just this awful, hollow certainty. And behind him, in the shadow of the hallway, stood Lily,
his daughter.
Her head was bowed, her shoulders trembling with picture-perfect grief.
She didn't look at me.
Not once. And that's when I knew the terrible truth. He wasn't listening to me anymore. He had already chosen his truth. The trial was over. The rain began as I walked. A cold drizzle that soaked my clothes, plastered my hair, made the suitcase pull in my arm like an anchor. The streetlights, my old guide's home, blurred into watery smears of gold. My chest was so tight, I couldn't breathe. How does it happen? How does a man you've shared your soul with turn into a stranger who exiles you with a single, flat command? I didn't know it then. Shivering on a friend's couch, tracing the cracks in the ceiling with a deadened stare. But that night was a birth. A brutal, painful birth. The night betrayal stopped being a shock and became a cold, hard clarity. And that clarity, it began to whisper of a different kind of strength. When I married David, I walked into a story of loss. He was a widower. Lily was 15, a girl carved from grief and silence. I never wanted to be her mother. I just wanted a corner of their world. A little peace. A little respect. At first, she was polite. She'd smile at the dinner table when he was looking. But when his car pulled away, the temperature dropped. The smile vanished. A cold, watchful silence would fill the house, and I'd feel like a ghost in my own home. I tried.
God, how I tried.
I cooked her favorite meals. I sat through endless school concerts. When David grew impatient with her moods, I was her defender. She's still grieving. I'd whisper in the dark. She needs patience. I wore that understanding like a shield, even as her silence felt like 1,000 small cuts. But nothing was ever enough. A question from me got a one-word answer. A gentle reminder was met with a look of pure offense. And David, he began to change. It was subtle. If Lily sighed, she was in a mood all day. He'd turn to me, a question in his eyes. If I explained, he'd wave it away. You're the adult, he'd say, his voice weary. She's sensitive. She's been through a lot. And I understood. I carried that understanding until I stooped under the weight of it. I told myself love was a bridge.
You just had to keep building.
What I didn't see was that Lily wasn't just a sad girl. She was an architect. And she was building a narrative, brick by brick, with me as the foundation of everything wrong. It started small, almost innocent. She snapped at me for asking for a ride. She ignores me when you're gone. Then, the killer line, delivered with watery eyes, I don't think she likes me, Dad. I can feel it. Each time, I denied it calmly. I explained. I tried to talk. David would nod, say, okay, but his eyes would drift back to her wounded face. He wanted peace more than truth. He wanted the easy path. I didn't see how dangerous that path was. Not until it disappeared beneath my feet. Then came the lie that shattered my world. He came home early. His face was pale stone. He didn't take off his coat. We need to talk. Lily appeared behind him, eyes red, hands clenched, a vision of fragile victimhood. His words were bullets. He said I stole money from Lily's savings, that I yelled at her, called her names, that I'd threatened to throw her out when she turned 18. The room spun. None of it, not one word, was true.
My voice was a thread.
Check the bank records, David.
Right now.
Ask me for dates. Think, you know me. You've loved me for 12 years. You know I could never do this. But then Lily broke. She sobbed, her body convulsing. I've been so scared, she choked. For years. I stayed quiet for our family. I can't carry it anymore. And just like that, I was gone. My history, my love, my truth, it meant nothing. David didn't move to check a statement. He didn't ask for proof. He looked from her shattered performance to my stunned face, and he chose. He chose the story that let him be the hero, the protector. He chose not to see the terrifying possibilities staring him in the face. Go pack a bag, he said, his voice dead. David, please. Now, he roared. The fire in his eyes meant only for me. I packed in a haze. He stood in the doorway, a warden. When I reached for a photo of us, he said, leave it. He was editing me out. He took the bag, zipped it, carried it to the door. Our life, reduced to a lump on the welcome mat. His final words were calm again, and that was the deepest cut. You've hurt my daughter enough, he stated. Leave. The door closed. The slam.
The end.
I spent that night in a state of shock on a borrowed couch. The humiliation was a taste in my mouth. I felt discarded. Erased. Within days, my number was blocked. A week later, divorce papers came. Cold, clinical, the final stamp on my erasure. And that was the moment something in me broke open and reformed, harder, clearer.
Clarity.
Begging had left me in the rain. Tears had gotten me a lawsuit. If lies had the power to destroy, then only truth had the power to rebuild. But truth needed armor. It needed proof.
So I stopped crying.
I stopped wishing. I started seeing. I became a silent, meticulous scholar of my own betrayal. I requested bank statements. I compiled years of digital breadcrumbs, calendar entries, location data, email receipts. I had a quiet, careful talk with Lily's old-school counselor. I'm trying to understand, I said, my voice gentle. Were there signs I missed? The counselor's careful, compassionate words told me more than she could say. Piece by piece, the fiction cracked. The stolen money. The withdrawal was from an ATM at the mall on a Saturday. My credit card receipt placed me 15 miles away at a garden center at that exact time. Security footage, obtained later, showed Lily there with friends, laughing. The yelling episodes? On the dates she gave, my work logs proved I was at my desk until 6. My phone's location history placed me at a dentist, then a book club. I had witnesses. The threats? This was the masterpiece. Buried in an old phone backup, I found it. A screenshot she'd sent me by mistake years ago. A group chat. Her words. LOL, the step monster is trying for a prenup. Joke's on her. I'm gonna make her life hell. And another, more recent. Operation Evil Stepmom is almost complete. Dad's starting to believe she's low-key abusive. Bye-bye, wannabe mom. My house again soon. I had it. The smoking gun. I didn't rush. I didn't scream it from the rooftops. Real justice isn't a knife in the dark. It's a spotlight. It's about gathering every ray of light, every hard fact, and waiting for the perfect moment to flip the switch. That moment was a courtroom. It was quiet, tense. Lily took the stand. She was confident, her story a tragic symphony. She cried perfect tears. David sat beside his lawyer, his face drawn but resolved. A father protecting his child. He believed her. Even there, under oath, He believed her. Then my lawyer stood. He was a quiet man. He simply said, "Your Honor, the evidence contradicts this testimony." And he began to present the bank records, the timeline exhibits, the affidavit from my employer, the statements from my dentist and friends, and then the messages. Her messages. They glowed on the courtroom screen for everyone to see. The casual cruelty. Operation Evil Stepmom. The gleeful plan. The room held its breath. I watched David's face. I will never forget it. Confusion first, then a slow, dawning horror. The blood drained from his skin. His eyes widened, staring at the words his daughter had typed. It was the look of a man watching his entire reality, his marriage, his parenthood, his judgment implode. The certainty he'd clung to like a life raft shattered and sank, taking him down with it. On the stand, Lily's confidence evaporated. Her voice cracked. It was a joke, she stammered, looking desperately at her father. But he wasn't looking at her. He was staring into the abyss he'd helped create. The judge's ruling was swift. The settlement was in my favor. But the money meant nothing. The victory was the silence after the gavel. The victory was the truth, finally, standing alone and unassailable in the center of the room. Lily fled, her sobs now real and panicked. David did not follow. He sat, utterly broken, a monument to his own terrible choice. Weeks later, my phone rang in the quiet of my new apartment. His voice was a ghost of itself, shaking, thin. "I made a mistake," he whispered. "A terrible mistake." I felt nothing. No triumph. No pity. Just a vast, calm emptiness. The storm was over. "I told you the truth," I said, my voice even. "You chose not to listen." He fumbled for words. Forgiveness.
Therapy.
Starting over. But some bridges aren't burned. They're vaporized. The canyon between us wasn't just crossed. It had become a permanent feature of the landscape. Trust destroyed that completely doesn't leave scraps to glue back together. "There's nothing to rebuild, David," I said. And I ended the call. I moved on. A new space with clean light. A life that was truly, quietly my own. The strength I found wasn't loud or fiery. It was the strength of bedrock. Of gravity. It was the knowledge that I had faced total annihilation and not just survived, but rebuilt myself on the only foundation that never shakes. My own word. My own truth. The lesson came too late for them. It broke them in a way a simple divorce never could. But it saved me. It forged me. I learned that the deepest betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from the inner circle, from the people who promise to be your shelter. And I learned that revenge, real revenge, isn't about violence or shouting. It's about supreme stillness. It's about becoming a collector of light, the hard, clean light of facts, and letting that light shine with such patience, such silence, that it illuminates every dark corner of the lie until there's nowhere left to hide. Never judge without proof. Never choose the comforting fairy tale over the difficult, beautiful mess of reality. And never, ever underestimate the quiet woman you wronged, the one you sent out into the cold. While you are busy building your castle of lies, she is gathering stones. Not to throw, but to build a fortress. And when that fortress is complete and the truth finally speaks, it doesn't whisper apologies. It doesn't negotiate. It changes everything.